My family demanded I postpone my wedding 2 years to protect my divorced sister's feelings. I married anyway and got disowned. But when she got engaged 4 months after meeting someone and my parents spent $40K on her new wedding, the hypocrisy got exposed and the family imploded. I'm 27 years old. I work in digital marketing. And honestly, I need to get all of this off my chest, because what happened with my wedding a few months ago basically blew up my family, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to fix it. Although honestly, I'm not even sure I want to anymore. I guess I should start from the beginning, or from as far back as I can remember, because this story really starts way before Lucas proposed to me. I was always the second choice in my family, you know what I mean? My older sister Lauren is 5 years older than me, and from the moment I was born, she was basically the golden star of the house, while I was like the shadow that nobody really noticed. It's not like my parents were abusive or anything that obvious, but there was this constant difference in how they treated us that everyone could see except them, apparently. Lauren would get good grades and my parents would buy her new clothes and take her out to dinner to celebrate. I'd get the same, grades or better, and they'd tell me, "Good job, sweetie. Keep it up." When Lauren wanted to go to whatever university she felt like, my parents sold my mom's old car to help her with tuition, and when I applied to universities 3 years later, they told me I should just go to the state school because they couldn't spend that much again. You know, those kinds of things that pile up year after year until you realize you're never going to be enough no matter what you do. And the worst part is that Lauren wasn't exactly nice to me when we were kids. She bullied me constantly, hid my things, told her friends I was weird. Once she cut my hair while I was sleeping because she said it looked better than hers and that wasn't fair. And when I complained to my parents, they told me not to exaggerate, that that's just how sisters were, that Lauren was just playing. Seriously? Cutting my hair is playing? But anyway, I learned to keep my mouth shut and basically survive by waiting for the day I could leave that house. I moved out as soon as I turned 18, right when I started college. I got a part-time job at a coffee shop and rented a room with 2 roommates in an apartment that honestly was a dump, but it was mine. You know? My parents got mad because according to them, it was a waste of money when I could live with them for free. But I knew that if I stayed there, I was going to go crazy. Lauren, by that point, had already gotten married. She was 23, I think. She married a guy she met at her work, and my parents organized a huge wedding. It must have cost $30,000 easy, with 200 guests and the whole thing. I was a bridesmaid because Lauren insisted, although honestly I never understood why because we weren't even close. I guess it was for appearances. The next few years were relatively quiet, honestly. Lauren lived her married life. I finished college, got my job in marketing. Met Lucas when I was 23 at a friend gathering and we started dating 3 months after meeting. Lucas is, I don't know how to explain it. He's the first person in my life who makes me feel like I'm the priority. You know what I mean? He's a software engineer. He's super smart, but he's also kind and funny. And when I'm with him, I feel like finally someone really sees me. My parents met him and were polite to him but never really made him feel welcome. There were always those passive-aggressive comments like, "Oh, good that you found a boyfriend, Zoe. We were starting to think you'd end up alone," or things like that that sounded like compliments but were actually a kick. So everything went to hell 2 years ago when Lauren got divorced. Turns out her marriage wasn't as perfect as everyone thought. Her husband cheated on her with a coworker and she found out and everything exploded. Obviously, it was horrible for her. I'm not going to deny that. Divorce is traumatic and she was devastated. But the way my parents reacted was like someone had died. Lauren moved back in with them to her old room that they had never touched because they kept it like a kind of shrine waiting for her to need it someday, I guess. And my parents basically wrapped her in cotton and started treating her like she was a wounded princess who needed to be rescued. I went to visit her, obviously, brought her food and listened to her cry for hours about how terrible her ex was and how he had ruined her life. And I genuinely felt bad for her, because nobody deserves to have that done to them. But there was also a part of me that thought welcome to the club of not being perfect sister, you know? Although I never told her that. For months, my parents' house was basically the operations center to help Lauren recover. They organized family dinners every weekend to cheer her up. My aunts went to visit her constantly. They even bought a dog so she'd have company, a golden retriever that cost $2,000. While all that was happening, Lucas and I continued with our life. We hit 4 years of dating last June, and one night he took me to this Italian restaurant we love. You know, our special place where we went on our first date, and after dinner he proposed to me. It was perfect. Literally the happiest moment of my life. The ring was beautiful. Not a very big stone, but super elegant. Just my style. And I obviously said yes through tears of happiness and the whole thing. I called my parents that same night because I was so excited and wanted to share the news. And my mom answered, and when I told her Lucas had proposed, there was this weird silence. And then she said, "Oh, that's nice, honey. Congratulations." But it sounded like super flat, like I had told her I'd bought milk at the grocery store. The next day, I went to visit them because I wanted to show them the ring and talk about general plans. Nothing concrete yet, but, share the excitement with your family like you're supposed to do. I arrived and Lauren was there. Which didn't surprise me, because she practically lived with them since the divorce. And when I walked in and showed them the ring, everyone acted weird, like uncomfortable. And finally, my dad said, "We need to talk to you about this, Zoe." And I was confused because I thought they were going to be happy, or at least pretend to be. They sat me down in the living room, and my mom started saying they were very happy for me, but they needed to ask me a very important favor. And I already knew something bad was coming because when your parents say they need to ask you a very important favor, it's never something good. My dad basically told me it wasn't a good time for me to get married, that Lauren was going through a very difficult healing process after the divorce, and that seeing her younger sister get married when she had just failed at her marriage was going to be too painful for her. I sat there processing those words, thinking like, wait, what? Are you asking me not to get married because my sister is sad? And then my mom said that what they were suggesting was that Lucas and I postpone the wedding for 2 years. Yes, you heard right. 2 full years. To give Lauren time to heal completely and hopefully find a new partner and be in a better emotional place before I got married. I literally couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like I thought it was a bad joke. And I told her mom, "You can't be serious." And she said yes, she was being serious. That it was the right thing to do as a family. That Lauren needed me in this difficult moment, and that me getting married now would be a terrible blow to her self-esteem and her recovery process. Lauren was sitting there and wasn't saying anything, just looking at the floor, and I asked her directly, "Lauren, do you agree with this? Do you really want me to postpone my wedding for 2 years because of you?" And she looked up and said, "Well, honestly, yes, Zoe. It would be very hard for me to see you get married when my marriage just ended. I feel like it would be like rubbing my failure in my face." And that's when something broke inside me. Like all those decades of being the second choice, of being ignored, of my feelings not mattering, everything exploded and I told them, "You know what? No, I'm not going to postpone my wedding. Lucas and I are going to get married when we want to get married. And if that's a problem for you, then that's your problem, not mine." My dad got really mad. Like I saw him turn red in the face. And he yelled at me that I was selfish, that I only thought about myself. That how could I be so insensitive with my sister when she needed me most? And I yelled back at him, when had they ever thought about me? When had I been the priority even once in my life? And my mom started crying, saying I was being cruel and that I was breaking the family. Lauren also started crying and said she always knew I hated her, that I had never been a good sister, and I was so furious that I got up and left that house without saying anything else, because I knew that if I stayed, I was going to say things I might regret later. Although honestly, I don't know if I would have regretted them. I got to my apartment a complete mess, crying and shaking, and Lucas was there waiting for me because we were going to go out to dinner to celebrate. And when he saw me come in like that, he got scared and asked me what had happened. I told him everything, every detail of that horrible conversation, and he hugged me and let me cry on his chest for like an hour. And then he told me, "Zoe, my love, you don't owe them your happiness. You don't have to put your life on pause for anyone. And we're going to get married when you want to get married, and whoever wants to come can come, and whoever doesn't, well, that's their decision." During the following weeks, my parents called me like 1,000 times, trying to convince me to change my mind. My aunts also started calling me because my parents had told them their version of the story where I was the selfish villain who didn't care about her sister's suffering, and I started receiving messages from the whole family telling me to reconsider, that family was the most important thing, that 2 years wasn't that much time. But I had already made my decision. Lucas and I set the date for 6 months later. In March, we hired a small and nice place for like 70 people, and we started planning our wedding. I sent the invitation to my parents because despite everything I still wanted them there. I guess part of me hoped they would come to their senses and realize how ridiculous they were being, but 2 weeks later my mom called me and told me that neither she nor my dad were going to go, that it was their way of showing support for Lauren in her difficult moment, and that they hoped I would understand it. She also told me that Lauren obviously wasn't going either, and that several uncles and cousins probably wouldn't go either because they didn't want to create more drama. I told her, "Okay, Mom, it's your decision," and hung up. I'm not going to lie, the next few weeks before the wedding were emotionally horrible. I was excited to marry Lucas, but I also felt this constant pain in my chest, knowing my parents weren't going to be there, that my dad wasn't going to walk me down the aisle, that my mom wasn't going to be there to help me with the dress. My friends were amazing. They helped me with everything. My best friend Sarah basically became my substitute mom for the whole planning process. And Lucas's mom was also super sweet and included me in everything like I was her daughter. The wedding day arrived and I was nervous but also at peace with my decision. You know? I put on my dress, which was simple but beautiful. Nothing too elaborate because that wasn't my style. And when it was time to walk down the aisle, I decided to do it alone. A lot of people told me to ask an uncle or Lucas's dad to walk me, but I didn't want that. I wanted to walk alone because that's what I had been my whole life, basically. Alone without my parents' support. So it made sense that I would walk alone toward my future too. When the music started and the doors opened and I started walking, I saw Lucas at the end of the aisle and he was crying and smiling at the same time, and all my friends were there and Lucas's friends and his family. And when I got to the altar, he took my hands and whispered to me, "You look beautiful," and it was perfect. It was exactly what I needed. The ceremony was short and emotional. We wrote our own vows. And when the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," everyone applauded. And I felt for the first time in my life that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The reception was at the same place. You know, nothing too fancy but nice and cozy. There were like 60 people, because some cousins did decide to come despite everything. And this is where things got interesting because during the reception, several of my uncles and cousins started asking me where my parents were. And I had prepared a vague answer like, "Oh, they decided not to come for personal reasons." But my Aunt Gloria, who is my mom's sister and has always been kind of gossipy, pressed me until I told her the complete truth. I told her everything, about Lauren, about the request to postpone the wedding for 2 years, about the ultimatum, everything. And she was left with her mouth literally open, like shocked, and then she started telling other family members, and the thing spread like fire. Turns out my parents had told the whole family a completely different story. They told them I had uninvited Lauren out of spite, and that they had decided not to go in solidarity with her because I was being cruel for no reason. I mean, they painted me as the villain, without mentioning anything about the ridiculous request they had made of me. The atmosphere at the reception changed completely when everyone found out the truth. My uncles were furious. My Aunt Gloria called my mom right there from the reception and yelled at her on the phone. Other cousins started sending messages in the family chat exposing the truth. It was chaos, but honestly, I felt like, finally, someone sees how crazy this is. One of my cousins, Sophia, who's getting married in August, told everyone she was going to uninvite my parents from her wedding because she didn't want such toxic people on her special day, and that caused even bigger drama. Lucas and I left on our honeymoon to Cancun for a week. We disconnected from all the drama and just enjoyed being together as husband and wife, and it was amazing, like exactly what we needed. But when we got back, there were like 50 voicemails from my parents, most of them from my dad yelling that I had destroyed the family, that because of me now, everyone was judging and isolating them, that it was my responsibility to fix this. And I listened to all of them and then blocked their numbers. I thought that would be the end of it, but obviously it didn't. And they started calling me from unknown numbers, created fake Facebook accounts to message me, asked Lauren to contact me. It was a nightmare. I finally blocked Lauren too because she started sending me messages saying all of this was my fault, that if I had been a good sister, none of this would have happened, that now she was suffering even more because the family was blaming her for the conflict when she had only been honest about her feelings. About a month after the wedding, I arrived at my apartment and there were boxes at the building entrance, and when I got closer, I saw they were my things, like stuff from my childhood that was still at my parents' house, old photos, some books, stuffed animals, clothes I had left there, all thrown in cardboard boxes that were like wet because it had rained. There was a note from my mom that said, "Here are your things. There's no reason for you to come back to this house anymore." Lucas helped me bring everything up, and when we opened the boxes, we saw that many things were ruined by the moisture and some photos were torn, and I don't know if they did it on purpose or if they just threw them out like that without care, but it hurt the same. The craziest thing happened like 2 weeks ago. Lauren announced on Facebook that she's engaged again. Yes, literally, it's only been like 8 months since her divorce was finalized, and she's already engaged to a guy she met on a dating app 4 months ago. And they're planning to get married in September, which is like in 5 months. And when I saw that, I found the hypocrisy so funny that I literally laughed alone in my apartment. Because wait, they asked me to postpone my wedding 2 years so Lauren could heal and find a new partner. And she found a new partner in 4 months and is getting married in record time. Seriously? Several cousins commented on her post like, "Congratulations, but also, that's fast, isn't it?" And my parents commented saying they were super happy and that this time Lauren had found the right man and they couldn't wait for the wedding. They didn't mention anything about it being too soon or her needing more time to heal. None of that garbage, they told me. My Aunt Gloria commented something like, "I'm happy for you, Lauren, but how curious that now it's okay to get married quickly." And my parents deleted her comment. Lucas says we should send a wedding gift with a note that says congratulations on your record speed healing, but I tell him not to stoop to that level, although I'm not going to deny the idea makes me laugh. Obviously, we weren't invited to Lauren's wedding, nor did I expect to be. And honestly, I don't care. I don't want to have anything to do with her or my parents anymore. Now, Lucas and I live in a bigger apartment we bought together. He got a promotion at his work. I'm also growing professionally. And we're thinking about adopting a cat. My Aunt Gloria and some cousins keep in touch with me. They invite me to small family gatherings where my parents aren't, and that's enough for me. I don't need a big family. I need a family that values and respects me. And that's what I have now with Lucas and with the people who decided to stay in my life after all this drama. Do I feel guilty sometimes? Obviously. Because you can't just turn off 30 years of conditioning where they taught you that your job is to please your family no matter the cost to you. There are nights where I ask myself if I should have handled things differently, if I should have been more patient, if maybe I should have postponed the wedding just 1 year instead of 2 as a compromise. But then I remember all the times my feelings didn't matter. All the times Lauren was the priority and I was the one who had to sacrifice. And I realized no, I shouldn't have given in. Because if I gave in on this, I was going to keep giving in for the rest of my life. Lucas and I are thinking about having kids in a couple of years. And when I think about that, I promise myself I'm never going to make differences between my children, that each one is going to know they're loved and valued equally, that I'm never going to ask one to sacrifice their happiness for the other. And if my parents ever want to meet their grandchildren, they're going to have to apologize first and really understand why what they did was wrong. And honestly, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Lauren's wedding is in 4 months, and according to my Aunt Gloria, my parents are spending like $40,000 on it, more than they spent on her first wedding. And they're going to invite over 200 people. It's like they're trying to prove something. I don't know what exactly. Maybe that Lauren is still perfect despite the divorce. Or maybe that they're good parents because look at everything they do for their favorite daughter. Some cousins have already said they're not going in solidarity with me, which surprised me because I didn't ask them to do. But it makes me feel validated in some weird way. Yesterday, Lucas and I were having dinner, and he asked me if I ever regret getting married, when I did. And I told him, no, not for a second. Because that day I married my best friend and started my real life away from all the toxicity I carried for years. He took my hand and told me he's proud of me for putting myself first for once. And that made me cry, but like good tears, you know? I don't know what's going to happen with my relationship with my parents long term, if we'll ever reconcile or if this is permanent. But what I do know is I'm not going to be the one to take the first step. They were the ones who decided that Lauren's imaginary pain was more important than my real happiness. They were the ones who didn't come to my wedding. They were the ones who threw my things out in the rain. So they're the ones who have to accept the consequences of their decisions. I already did my part of carrying the weight of being a daughter who was never enough. And I don't plan to keep doing it.